Hello my friends and welcome back to EVE Online with me, Mark from DadX, and today we're going to look at the second aspect of being less likely to be ganked in high sec, which is when you are hauling or simply transporting, flying your ship to the location of your missions, etc. But the first thing I want us to think about before we look at ships or techniques or anything like that is where are we going and what are we taking there, because they're quite relevant questions. The real question is, to be honest, do you need to go to Jitter? Now, we all know that Jitter is a hotbed of chicanery, ganking, etc, etc. It's because it is so busy. Because it's so busy, you get the best prices there. Your stuff will sell quickly. So the temptation is to take everything up to Jitter to sell and always go to Jitter to buy. That exposes you to a lot more hazard than you would if you sold stuff locally. Obviously, you might have some very high value items you want to get to Jitter to get the absolute best price. And you might want to get up to Jitter just to buy a nice new ship or some equipment to bring back with you. But you really want to think about, do you need to make that journey? I very rarely go to Jitter myself, and I don't feel that I'm really being hammered financially for that. Though Dixie has most of what I need, the prices may not be the best, but no one tries to gank you when you're on your way to Do Dixie. You're also saving quite a lot of time, obviously, depending on where you live. 32 jumps round trip from where I'm docked at the moment up to Jitter. That's quite a chunk of time. Am I going to make as much money doing something else in EVE with that time as I am extra profit by taking stuff all the way to Jitter? So, as we all know, Jitter is where all the ganking really is focused and the routes to Jitter. So do just think, do you really need to go to Jitter? That's the first thing I want you to consider before you even worry about what ship to fly and how to fit it. And once we've answered that question, do we need to go to Jitter, then of course we can look at what we want to take to Jitter or wherever it is we're going and the best ship to get it there with. So first of all, we're going to look at some alpha friendly options, and we're going to start with the cheapest and the easiest to use, and one that you can use pretty much from day one. You will need a little bit of skills. But it is, of course, our old friend, the Incursus. Now, the reason I've got the Incursus, it is the biggest frigate that I can get the alpha down to under a 2-second align time in with his skills. We've got 4 inertial stabilizer 2s down the bottom. And up in the rigs, we have a pair of small cargo hold optimization rigs and 1 low friction nozzle joint. You could put more low friction nozzle joints in, especially if your skills didn't get you under 2 seconds over here on the align time. But the way I've got this fitted does boost our cargo capacity up to 218, which it isn't much, but if you just think of blue modules, clone soldier tags, etc, you might want to take somewhere to sell, that's quite a lot of modules or tags. Another very attractive aspect of using this ship is it is so cheap. You don't need to bring it back. If I fly up to Jitter to get a new ship, I might want to take some of my blue mods, etc, my best loot up there to get the best prices on that, and then fly my new ship back. If I fly up there in a more expensive ship, am I really going to want to leave it in Jitter and fly my new ship back? This thing, under 2 million to get it and fit it, you can just leave it there. You don't need to always get this ship back. So that is the big advantage of this ship. I will explain when we're just demonstrating this practically why the 2-second align time matters. But this is definitely the cheapest option out there. With Omega skills and more training, you'll probably get this more under 2 seconds than I can as an alpha. But of course, if you've got Omega privileges, you might not need to even look at this option. So this is the cheapest. Definitely kind of leave it there when you've got your stuff option. It's very quick. It's very handy for me just for bombing around, getting stuff moved. Think about it. Very cheap. The next option, of course, as I've already shown you, because everyone talks about it, so I thought I'd stick it in the screen first, even if I didn't talk about it first, is of course the Synesis. Exactly the same principle as the Incursus. It's all about getting this align time under 2 seconds, which an alpha can do. Again, we've got inertia stabilizers down here. Nanofiber internal structures do assist agility, but inertia stabilizers do it more. And because we're never getting locked, that's the whole point of the sub 2 second align time, we're not going to get locked. It doesn't matter that we've got a bigger signature radius because of these. And again, in the rigs, we've got a cargo hold optimization, another cargo hold optimization, and another cargo hold optimization. I've even got room for 1 expanded cargo hold 2 down here in the low slots. So that gets the capacity up to 1,163.5 meters cubed. So it's a lot more cargo capacity. It's almost 6 times, 5.5 times the Incursus, but it's a lot more price wise. It's only 30 million, probably about 35 million if you actually go and get the stuff from the market. It's not cheap, and it's not a kind of ship you're going to want to fly somewhere, pick up a nice big ship and leave this there. It's one that you're going to use more as your dependable truck. It's not the most early game ship available simply because of the price, but it is definitely a viable option once you can afford one. What you do with the high slots and the mid slots on these 2 fits is really down to you. I've just got bits and pieces in here in case I want to do a bit of scanning on the way back. Salvaging I don't really do, but it's an option. You might find a juicy wreck to loot, whatever. It's really up to you. It's all about just getting that under 2 seconds. I've got 1.95. The lower you can get it, the better, just because of the way ticks work, but we'll talk about that when we're flying. So your options are the 2 million Cursus with a just over 200 cubic meter cargo capacity and a 35 mil potentially Synesis with a nearly 1200 cubic meter capacity. These are the 2 safest options for an alpha to use. They're also very good for Amigas for their little niche and their role. So think about them both, but certainly most people will just tell you go for the Synesis, but there is an even cheaper option and an easier to get into option. Each race's interceptor frigate, the fast ones, so the Atron, the Executioner, etc., they'll all get under 2 seconds with alpha skills, but they've got smaller cargo holds. So the Incursus, and you only need level 1 Galante frigate to get into it, and your skill level does not affect your cargo capacity in any way. So it's a very easy ship to get into. It's an option for sure, and then we've got the Synesis for when you've got more money and more stuff you want to shift. But to be honest, 1200 cubic meters isn't exactly a lot. The other alpha option, of course, is just your general hauler. We'll look at haulers in their own little subsection later in the video. So now let's just have a little practical demonstration of how the sub 2 second align time actually works in practice, and explain to you how it is that makes you unlockable. Right, before we head out, we're just going to load up this little Incursus. We're actually heading out a low sec, although obviously the focus of this video is high sec. I use this ship a lot just for running stuff out of low sec. Today I'm just going to get some tags and some high value modules in there, fill the Incursus up and head out. So that's the way I use this ship. I do pick and choose. A lot of these lower value modules that I pick up in low sec, to be honest, the really cheap stuff gets crushed every once in a while. It's not really worth hauling it out. But it's the good stuff we're dealing with today. The accumulated loot from about 2 or 3 weeks of clone soldier hunting and a couple of sites that I ran. Pink modules, of course, yum yum. We'll stick a couple of those in. We're full up. We're just shy of 350 million for this Incursus load. I could have made this individual load much more high value, but I think that's about as high as I want to go. You never know. Might meet a smart bomber when I'm flying through low sec. Then things can go badly. But it's so rare, it's never happened to me. I'm going to set my destination, even though it's a short trip and I know exactly what the route is. The reason I'm going to always set a destination when I'm heading off is to leave me less to do at the gates. I literally have to press 1 click and we're away. So we're going to head over there in my little Incursus and just show you how quickly we get through the gate. You will see how quickly we'll get away here. But the way that the actual sub 2 second align time works and protects you is that the server works in 1 second ticks. So you come through a gate, it's going to take 1 second to lock you up, and then it will take another second in that second tick for a module to activate, whether it's a scrambler, a disruptor or a weapon. So if you're not there for those 2 seconds, that's not going to have time to happen. They may, if they're very quick and fitted correctly, be able to lock you but not apply damage. And you can see here how quickly we're away. Our destination's pre-selected, so I need to just press jump. The chances of us getting locked up there are basically 0, I'm going to say. Not quite 0 perhaps. Obviously smart bombers are a different thing. We don't need to worry about that. They very rarely happen in low sec. In high sec it's not going to happen. Nobody sits at a high sec gate smart bombing that I've ever seen. Correct me in a comment if you've ever seen that yourself. But that is all there is to the theory of the sub 2 second align time. You're just not there long enough for them to lock you up and either get you disrupted or shoot you. Simple as that. We're actually going to give you a bit more of a practical demonstration in that we're going to show you both sides of the situation here. This is the same Incursus fit. I'm flying over to the gate here. On the other side of the gate we have Yepvar Nartepa waiting in a sensor boosted Thrasher. There he is. I've cut his screen in there This is the power of editing, no weird gimmicks software wise. As I come through, you will see me flash up on his overview. I will be highlighted, so I will be clear to see. You will see me flash up there I am. He's trying to lock me up. Even with overheated sensor boosters, I'm away. He's got no chance of locking me up there. And that is it. There you go. A nice practical demonstration. The poor Thrasher is left hungry at the gate. Good. Haha. The next ship we're going to look at is the Gnosis for two reasons. I'm actually going to demonstrate the cloak micro warp drive trick here, which obviously you need to be a mega to have a cloak. However, depending on your skills and your fit, the Gnosis is an amazingly agile battle cruiser. I can get this down if I simulate a fit and just fill the bottom with inertial stabilizers, etc. I can get this down to almost a 2-second align time with my alpha. If you guys play about with this with your Omega, especially if you wanted to put another rig or two in it to increase its agility even further, you will see that the align time there perhaps could be squished down to sub 2 seconds. Let me know in a comment if you can get your Gnosis to under 2 seconds align time. If so, it might be an option. It's quite a big cargo hold. But anyway, the cloak and micro warp drive trick is what we're going to show now, and I'm showing it on a Gnosis because it's quite a big ship, although it's an agile one. This will work on your Nereus, your T1 small hauler. If you're going to try this with your mate in high sec, remember you need to be in an active duel, so let's get the duel invitation in there and accepted before we do anything. Cool. And this is very simple. When we press align, we want to hit the cloak straight away. You've got 5 seconds after you activate your cloak to activate your micro warp drive or any other passive module, and then click it straight off, and you will see we'll appear on the Thrasher's overview highlighted, but we won't be lockable because we're going into cloak. If you do mess that bit up and don't hit cloak quickly, you could be in trouble. So it's going to do one cycle, then as it finishes its cycle there, you decloak, you hit warp, and you're gone, and you're never on that overview long enough to actually be lockable. So we're just going to run through that again with the Gnosis. As I say, all you need to do is align to your destination, instantly press cloak, then fire a micro warp drive and switch it straight back off. When it finishes its single cycle, you decloak and you warp. It is as simple as that. The actual theory that's happening here is that the micro warp drive running boosts your speed up. So when the micro warp drive finishes running, you're already at over 75% of your normal speed, which is when you achieve warp. So if you're over 75%, you're fine. So 75% speed and above, you basically insta warp as you decloak. If you've got a slower ship to align, you can have problems, but we can look at that too. So here we are in a Procurer jumping through the gate. As you can see, to get a micro warp drive fitted on this Procurer, we've had to switch off the tank. But that's okay, because if we don't get caught, we don't need tank. So we're going to accept the duel. I'm going to go through the standard procedure. We're going to align, we're going to cloak, which we can do fine because cloaking is cloaking. The problem we're going to have here is at the end of the micro warp drive cycle, because we're not going to have achieved 75% of our normal maximum speed. So we've got this delay right here where we try to get up to speed, which is where we get locked, is where we get scrambled, and we're stuck on the gate. Only option here is to hope we've got the tank to maybe burn back to the gate and get out. But this can be overcome. All you need to do is slightly modify your technique. You can't overheat a module while you're cloaked. You can overheat a module and then cloak. So practice this one. We're going to click the micro warp drive to overheat. Then we're going to run the micro warp drive, then we cloak. Then you shut the micro warp drive off. There you go. Did you see that? With the micro warp drive overheated, this 17-second align time Procurer will achieve an insta warp when it decloaks. And there he goes, and there you can see on the Thrasher's overview, I'm just not lockable. So practice that one more than the first one. You need to get your micro warp drive ready to overheat, or you can shift click on it to activate it overheated, and then you cloak, then you deactivate your micro warp drive, and as the micro warp drive finishes its cycle, you decloak and hit warp, and you should be out of there. Right, before we move on to look at the hauling ships themselves, the actual proper, so to speak, hauling ships. We're just going to talk about a couple more ideas to plan our route or be aware of our route and how hazardous it may or may not be. There's one right here in the game. I've plotted a route here to Jitter, 17 jumps of it there, and then if we open up the star map, you can see our route is plotted. Now up here on the settings, you can go to geography and statistics, and you can look at ships destroyed in the last hour, and you can check along your route, and you can see it's all pretty quiet until of course we get to Udama. 7 ships destroyed in the last hour and 8 ships destroyed next door in silver, so watch out around there. And then of course as we get closer to Jitter, we've got 2 kills in perimeter in the last hour and 28 in Jitter. So you can see in pretty much real time how active systems are. Externally to the game, we got .land maps, which will give you pretty much the same information. Here you see Uadama, 29 kills and 6 pods. And then if you want to keep an eye on the gates in there, there's this Twitch channel, Uadama Scout, which is showing us the gates, the neighbouring systems, who's in local. We've got the overview in Uadama on the Sivela gate, and then we got a couple of more overviews here, so you can see who's lurking there before you go in. So bookmark those. That's Uadama Scout channel on Twitch and .land maps. You can of course go in and scout a system ahead of you, or have a buddy or an alt do that if you have that facility. How you deal with what looks like a potentially hazardous gate, I'd quite often go through in a pod. You can switch to an empty pod in a clone bay instantly nowadays. So why you drive, if you're transiting stuff, why are you going in a blinged pod? Use your pod as your scouting ship if you're in a hauler. I'd much rather get podded back to the beginning of my journey. Or you could set your home to where you've docked up your ship to do that little scout in your pod. So if you did lose your pod, you go just back to the station where your hauler is anyway. Just think about scouting. But back to the ships themselves, and here we have a Nereus. It is my probably most used hauling ship. I absolutely adore them. They can be quite tanky, they can be quite handy bait ships. They're pretty quick. They can use the cloak micro warp trick very well. They've got a nice quick align time. My particular fits here, it has tank rigs fitted, closing the EM hole and a couple of extenders. This one gets refitted as a bit of a bait ship sometimes. You obviously can boost up your cargo bay with rigs if you want, or expanded cargo holds down here. Do be aware, anything you fit to a ship to increase its cargo capacity is going to reduce its hit points. You're losing tank. So I always carry around in here a selection of other modules, so if I don't need the cargo capacity, I mean with just those expanded cargo holds, almost 11,400 cubic meters, and you'll see with nothing in the low slots to boost our agility, we've got a 6.5 second or nearly 6.6 second align time, more than quick enough for the cloak micro warp drive to be very effective on this ship. If you don't need to carry a full load, then I would recommend that you take off some of these expanded cargo holds, and I put in a mixture of inertia stabilizers and nanofiber internal structures to bring the agility up. Just makes us faster to get into warp, saving time as well as keeping us a little bit safer. And now we're down to 3.9 second align time. Pretty quick in the warp, not spectacular, but 4.72 AU. Certainly compared to an Iteron, which I'm not really going to talk about. An Iteron is simply a big bulk carrier, as are the specialist Galante carriers and the Minmatar ships that can carry ammo and cap boosters. They're all big and slow. The Nereus is definitely the safest one, as are each race's faster, smaller haulers of the Tech 1 variety. You can of course put on a warp core stabilizer. I tend not to these days. My real policy is to not get locked. But that could get you out of trouble if there was a single ship, you're just a guy in his alt, maybe particularly on a low sec gate. But we're talking about high sec. I've heard it said by quite reputable people, if you fly a Tech 1 hauler with more than 100 mil in it, you will lose it. It's never happened to me, and I've been a bit cocky sometimes. I would imagine if you go up to jitter quite a lot in your Tech 1 hauler with over 100 million in it, that is probably a much more accurate statement. But for general use, guys, no, these are not just getting popped off all the time. They're great little ships. I do recommend them. Give them some tank, make them as fast as possible, and if you can fit a cloak, do. If you're an alpha, obviously there's no cloak or micro warp drive to be had, so I rely on a little bit of tank, faster line speed, and scouting if I need to. I'm not going to overload my Nereises with really precious cargo when an alpha's flying them. I've shown you more secure ways of doing that for an alpha. Tech 2 haulers I'll touch on very briefly. There are 2 of them for each of the 4 races. We'll look at the Okata first. Now this basically is the slower, very tanky hauler. So this is fitted with resistance hardeners because that's what the ship is bonused for. So if we actually simulate the ship, we're up to 45, nearly 46,000 EHP. We have a +2 built-in warp core strength bonus, so that means the first scrambler that we've got on us would be ignored. You could of course put a warp core stabilizer in there too. That would make you immune to 2 scramblers worth of tackle. Do note the bonuses to overheating, so if you do get in the situation, overheat everything straight away and try to burn back to gate would be my main advice if you're really that stuck. But it's got the tank to probably make it. That's the point with this one. Now when it comes to cargo capacity with the Okata here, that 3,900 is just the cargo hold. This ship actually also has a fleet hangar, 57,500 capacity. The capacity of that bay will increase with your transport ship skill, as will your armor resistances, so do remember to train up your skills. You might not be getting additional cargo capacity, but you're getting much safer. Galante haulers giving you armor repair and mountain ship velocity. So yeah, get your skills trained up to make sure you're safe. Don't just get the transport ships level 1 so you can fly it and leave it at that. Now we'll get onto the Viator. This is basically the fast, quick, smaller capacity version. It can also fit, which is really its special power, the covert ops cloak. So you should be able to get off pretty much every gate safely. It hasn't got a huge cargo capacity, slightly more than the Nereus, and that's with cargo hold optimizations and cargo hold extenders, which is knocking down the tank. But the whole idea of this one is it's not getting locked, it's not getting shot at. So I've given it a little bit of tank in the mid slots just as an absolute emergency. I'll close the EM hole here with the shield amplifier. So we've not got a huge amount of hit points, 20,000, but we've got a covert ops cloak. We should not ever be getting caught in this ship. That is really the plan. And when it comes to the bonuses for this ship, it's warp speed and warp acceleration. I think you can get this up to something like over 10 AU a second in the warp. This gets system to system very quickly, and the hauler skills are giving you cargo capacity and ship velocity bonuses. So really this one is basically a Nereus with a covert ops cloak, to put it very simplistically. They're not cheap, but they're very secure. And the final class of ships we're going to look at is actually exploration frigates, and the champion exploration frigate for this role is the Magnate. Now because it's got 4 low slots, you can boost this up. I've got 1607.7 cubic meters of cargo space in this little frigate. It can do the cloak micro warp drive trick. You can still have a probe scanner on there and a tiny little bit of tank, but hopefully the cloak micro warp drive trick is going to keep you safe, certainly out in high sec. And you've got 1600 cubic meters of capacity. All of the exploration frigates have got quite a good cargo capacity. Their base is 400, I think, each. Some have more or less low slots, but even the Heron is a ship I use a lot just for running stuff in and out of low sec. Not particularly high value items, but you know, it's a decent load of ammo, or just ship some loot out when I'm heading out anyway. So yeah, exploration frigates are definitely a class of ships just handy to run around with. And if you haven't got much to carry, again, they're just that much faster than a hauler. And they're quite cheap too, which is handy. So I think that's it for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this useful and informative. Please leave the video a like if you have. Leave your comments down below. Anything I've overlooked, any other ideas that you may have or suggestions. Remember to leave your in-game name if you want to get a chance at winning a Phantasm skin, which you still have some left to give away. And we'll be back very soon. But for now, my friends, remember, even is believing. Look after yourself and each other. Fly brave and goodbye.